Uh, the real focus is to talk about some of the unique ones that are a couple of are a couple of million dollars, and then the new one that's gathering 6 years right now, and give you an update basically on generally what happened in Olympia in the last session, and then a little bit of talk about the election cycle coming up. What we normally do in these town halls is we do a kind of a data dump right now at the start, give you just as much as I can put out quick. We have a couple other legislators here, and I'll go ahead and give each of them a couple of minutes to talk about what they've seen, what they're working on, kind of their version of the update. And what we've got now is Chris Corey, who's one of my colleagues in the House, and Vicky Torres, of course, state senator. And I'm going to include Jeremy Defoe, who was in the House and is likely to be in the House again coming up. Give him a moment to talk too. And we've got Jared Sessler here, of course, too. Now, Jared's running for the U.S. Congress, so his take will be a little different. He'll be talking more about D.C. But most of the focus of what we're up to is about what's happening at the state level in Olympia. So as you know, we had our legislative session earlier this year. During an election year in Olympia, the legislature meets for the so-called short session. And this short session was different in a good way. Because of the 6 initiatives that we qualified last year, and those were initiatives to the legislature. So they came to the legislature earlier this year like bills. They really dominated the discussion, the debate, the anxiety, the scheming, the plotting, all the stuff was definitely dominated and kind of defined by these 6 initiatives. And as you may remember, if you're watching the news or paying attention, at the beginning of the session, the Speaker of the House in Olympia, not DC, the Speaker in Olympia, gave this media interview where she said she was disappointed that the people had signed the initiatives and signed enough to get them to the Capitol as bills. And that didn't work very well for her. That statement backfired pretty quick. And in general, what it showed is the majority Democrats were having to play defense, basically, policy-wise. And they're not good at that. They haven't played a lot of defense in most of their political careers, and they kind of didn't know what to do. They were bad at it. They were kind of arrogant, they were kind of insulting, they were kind of whatever, but they weren't effective. Their take on how to answer the initiatives was not very effective. And so initially the speaker said that they were going to do nothing. They were going to ignore the 6 initiatives and just let them go to the people, have the people decide what to do with them. Well, pretty quickly, when they started looking at like the polling information about the initiatives and how popular they were, they realized that would be a bad plan, because if they let all 6 go to the ballot this coming November, they were going to get wrecked politically, because all 6 were going to get probably very strong support, and that would set a precedent for voters to go on and vote conservative on down the line on the ballot. So in their infinite wisdom, the majority Democrats got together and they decided to split the baby. They were going to allow 3 of the initiatives to get voted on in the legislature in Olympia and become law, and then they were going to ignore 3, and those 3 would go on to the people for the vote this November. If you've actually read the Bible, you know that splitting the baby is actually a bad idea, and that didn't work in that story. But that's what they did. And so 3 of the initiatives got hearings, got votes, and passed into law during the legislative session. And those 3 were restoring police pursuits of criminals and criminal suspects, so cops could chase bad guys again. The so-called Washington Parents' Bill of Rights, which doesn't change everything we want to change about kids and healthcare and mental health care and all those things, but starts and is very focused on information. Basically, what it says in a number of different ways is custodial parents or guardians can't have information about their minor child withheld from them. So these ideas that the school or the even law enforcement agency or a shelter can hide information about a child from the custodial parent, that goes away. The Bill of Rights says they have to tell you, at least tell you where your kid is and what's going on with your kid. Now, some of the mature minor stuff is still there and the child can still receive certain kinds of care without parental permission, but the parent at least has to be informed. So it's a first step, in my opinion. So that one passed into law. The ACLU is currently suing, trying to prevent that one from taking effect, but the legislature passed it into law. We can talk about that later too. And then the third one, which the left said was pointless, so they were happy to vote for it anyway. I didn't really follow the logic of that. Is the one that clarifies the state law on a state income tax. It says very clearly, despite some other confusing language in the law, that there is no state tax on personal income in this state. And federal is still there, but in the state of Washington, there'll be no tax based on personal income. So those three passed into law. And then the three others that they ignored come to the ballot to you to vote on this November. And that's the initiative to repeal the cap and trade tax scheme that's been driving up gas and diesel and every other thing, groceries and every other thing. The one to repeal the state's capital gains excise tax. And this is the one where everywhere else in the world, capital gains is considered a form of income tax, and therefore under the other law would be prohibited in Washington. But in our state, the state Supreme Court said a capital gains tax is not a form of income tax, it's an excise tax. This is what lawyers call a novel theory, or what regular people call bullshit. So this initiative says we don't care whether it's an excise tax or income tax or a Dungeness crab, it doesn't matter what the courts call it, it's repealed. And then the third one that'll be on the ballot this November is the one that, it doesn't repeal it, but it makes opt out the payroll tax, state payroll tax, that funds the so-called long-term care benefit program. It's not insurance, but it's kind of like long-term care insurance. That's basically nursing home coverage and similar insurance coverage. This is not an insurance plan exactly, it's a state benefit program that's meant to look like long-term care insurance, and it's terrible. It's a terrible low benefit. There are all these exclusions and exceptions where a lot of people won't be able to get the benefit for the nursing home care. And most importantly, the scheme is insolvent. It's bankrupt before it's even paid out $1 in benefits. And it was designed that way, which to my mind is borderline criminal, but nevertheless. So that one, it makes it opt out. Now, it doesn't make it go away, it doesn't repeal it, but our belief is if the people whose paychecks are being nicked for this thing, and it's taking the money out ahead of time and putting it in, and right now, the nick is about 58 cents per $100 of whatever your paycheck is, and it's going up. The insolvent part means that the bureaucracy in Olympia can raise the deduction without an act of the legislature. They can just decide to raise that and it'll be higher. So people can opt out of that so they don't get it nicked out of their paycheck. And that'll force the scheme, in my opinion, to do one of two things. Either get reformed so that it's better and isn't such a rotten deal, or go away. And either one is an improvement for people. So those are the three: repeal cap and trade, repeal capital gains, opt out of payroll for long-term care. Those are the three that are already on the ballot this November for you to vote on. And before I finish talking about those six, so 3 into law, 3 on the ballot in November, the effect they had on the legislature in Olympia was more than just those 6 points in law or policy. Because the majority Democrats were so on the defensive mode on these things, they screwed up a bunch of other stuff in a good way, which means they didn't get bad bills passed through Olympia. They had a rent control bill that was pretty bad. That one died. They had this crazy bill about hospitals that if hospitals didn't promote certain kinds of controversial, yes, gender-altering medical services, they would be nicked with various bureaucratic restrictions, additional regulatory rules designed basically to run rural hospitals out of business. Well, rural hospitals are already being run out of business. So this thing was a horrible idea, and it would have made the hospital situation even worse in rural communities. That one died. So we were able to make a lot of their bad ideas not pass, in part because they were so obsessed about what to do about the initiatives, they didn't have their head in the game about their other things they like to push through. So it was interesting, and as one of our colleagues, Corey's and my colleague in the House said, somebody asked her, well, what do you think about the session right after it ended? And she said, well, I've been in the legislature now for 4 or 5 years. This is the first session that didn't suck. And I don't know, Chris, I think that's about right. I mean, it wasn't great, but it wasn't that bad. So that was a win for people who, actually work jobs and pay bills and, own houses and things like that. So all in all, it was a decent session. They didn't get a lot of their bad ideas through. And we got some good ideas into law. The restoring the police pursuits of criminals, to my mind, is the most important reform that's come out of Olympia in probably a decade. And if you talk to any cop or sheriff's deputy or anybody, they'll tell you there's a lot they want, there's a lot that needs to be fixed in our law enforcement in the state, but that was really the biggest one they wanted to see fixed, was get the ability to pursue that. And I think we'll see a good effect on property crime, on drug crimes, on violent crimes. I think all of them will put some downward pressure on those crime rates because our law enforcement guys and gals can now chase criminals again. And I think that's a good thing. The Parents' Bill of Rights, like I said, the ACLU is now suing, even though it passed into law, they're suing to try to prevent it from taking effect, making a completely screwball argument about how it is a damaging policy, and it's all blarney. But they're doing it anyway, and we're fighting that in court this week and next week. So that was that. Toward the end of the session, the outgoing governor, Inslee, really used like the last bits of political capital that he had to push through a bill, House Bill 1589. And that's what the new initiative is about, the Initiative 2066. Denise got it right there. So this House Bill 1589, you've probably heard about it and read about it in paper or whatever. We call it a ban on natural gas in homes or businesses. It's not quite a ban, but it sets in place the structure that would become a ban on natural gas. And it uses some financial regulatory trickery to force utilities into no longer offering natural gas as an option. They didn't have enough votes to get it through the legislature. Even our colleagues, Democrats, they didn't all agree or they didn't like it. Because, and this actually gets to like Seattle, Puget Sound stuff. In Puget Sound, in Seattle, people like natural gas. Especially they like it to cook with, but they like natural gas. So this idea of getting rid of it because green, it doesn't float well with really just about anybody. And so, but Inslee, I mean, he's hardwired, green, everything green energy, green future, green technology. And part of his religion is all carbon-based energy sources, gas, diesel, propane, I mean, you name it, have to be outlawed. And natural gas fits in that category. So they put it up for a vote on the floor of the House. And they didn't have enough Democrat votes to get it through. They announced it on the floor and then held it open, which is unusual. And the last time the Speaker of the House, Lori Jenkins out of Tacoma, did this, a year ago in 2023, it failed. She put another bill out on the floor for a vote, didn't have enough votes, tried to whip the votes, that is, twist arms, while the bill is being voted on the floor. In 2023, she tried it, and she couldn't get it. She couldn't get enough votes. And that was like a big humiliation for her. So this time, she was much more effective about twisting the arms, and she did manage to get just enough votes to get the natural gas ban passed. So it did pass. What Initiative 2066 does is it reverses the effects of that House Bill 1589, restores natural gas as an option. Nobody's got to have it, but if you want it, it's available as an option. This is more important, I believe, even than it seems, because I think getting this initiative qualified, and this one doesn't go to the legislature. This one is designed to go straight to the people. So we have till July 5th to collect enough signatures, and that number is about 400,000 signatures of registered voters in Washington. So you got to be registered, and you got to be in Washington to sign it. If we do that by July 5th, that repeal of the ban, so restore natural gas, will be on the ballot this November with the other three. So then there would be 4 initiatives at the top of the ballot, and that's another important thing. These initiatives are the top of the general election ballot. They are the first items on the election ballot. So they're ahead of president, governor, all the things. They are the first items you vote on in the November ballot. And it's our strong belief that if people vote yes on the initiatives, vote yes, pay less. If you vote yes on the initiatives, this is going to incline a lot of middle road voters and swing voters to vote conservative down the ballot. At least that's our hope. So the initiatives had a bigger effect than just the points in policy they address. They reshaped the psychology of the legislature in a good way. And people are beginning to believe that their vote counts and their voice counts, and if they sign these cockamamie petitions, their signature counts, that this really works. And that is the hardest thing in politics, is getting people to believe that their efforts will work, will be effective. And that's basically we're on the brink of that right now. So that's the quick data dump. Vote yes, pay less. Look at that. Perfect. And grab a few and give them to people. People may say to you if you talk to them about these initiatives, why? I'm never sure. If you vote yes, is it a good thing? If you vote no, how are you supposed to vote? Vote yes, pay less. It's a simple slogan and it works. So I'm going to hand it over now to my colleagues. We'll start with, let's start with Nikki. Are you ready to go? Let the state senator go first. You guys all know Nikki Torres. She has a lot to say and has been living the redistricting thing. I didn't even talk on that yet. Well, I'll just leave that to you. That's a mess, and we're trying to sort that out. But Nikki, take it away. Just update them.
Good to see you. Glad to drive over again. It's like I see you in the valley like 3 times a week now. Great.
Well, my daughter lives in Yakima, so I've got a reason to drive out.
I love that. Yeah, good reason.
Yay!
Well, that was a great update from Jim on all the initiatives. So remember to spread the word, and there's extra leaf sheets if you want to help collect signatures as well. I think it is very, very important. I'm going to have to take one with me before I leave. I forgot last time to take one. But with regards to the redistricting, you've heard it. It's right now you see Jeremy Dufault, who was here. He was a former representative. He was redistricted out when the lines were first changed back in 21. And unfortunately, he got redistricted out in that time. I ran in 22 and got elected. And now, unfortunately, they're upset because it's the wrong type of Latina that got elected. Imagine that. So I guess the people that voted didn't count, is what they're saying. So they're saying that everyone that voted didn't count, pretty much, because, oh, they got it wrong. They got it wrong. How could that be? So now they're redrawing the lines again. Clinton appointed judge decided to go with this group that put forward the lawsuit on the Voting Rights Act that was making a mockery of the Voting Rights Act, and decided to go with their side and said, you know what, we're going to change it because Democrats seem to really advocate more for the Latino community, which is wrong. Because if you know Latinos, majority of us are very conservative. We're family first. strong faith, and hard workers. And I think that that judge has no idea what Eastern Washington is like, or Latinos in Eastern Washington, or Central Washington, for that matter. And so those lines are being redrawn. So you'll see Jeremy is running right now for the current 15, well, the new 15, excuse me. And the new 14 covers Pasco. So I've been redistricted completely out because they made sure and said, oh, we can't have any of our properties within the new boundaries. And so they made very sure of that. And they also redistricted Senator King. So he had to move to be the incumbent for the current 14. So if you have family that is in the current 14, Yakima County has already updated the boundaries, so you'll be able to see the current map. You just zoom in. It's better if you do it from a desktop if you really want to see where your address is at, to see if you're in the 15th or in the 14th. Somebody said, I could pretty much throw a ball across the road and that's the other district, which is true for some. But so you'll get to meet Gloria Mendoza as well. She is one of the candidates. I'm very proud that she is running. A good friend of mine. She was formerly the mayor of Grandview. And also Deb Manjares is running. So I'm urging you to please support these three candidates in the 14th, including Senator King, who's the current incumbent, and of course Jeremy Defoe, who is here, and you already know Chris. So yeah, it's Representative Chris Corey. So please continue to support them as well. So I want to make sure that we keep those seats and not lose those 3 seats, because that is what they want. They want a super majority. They said that loud and clear. The Democrats have. They already have a majority, and as you heard Jim mention, this was actually not a bad year in the legislature for session, because we actually have been playing defense quite a bit. They had a lot of bad bills, and we were able to overcome a lot of those bills. And again, we're in the minority. There's only 20 of us in the Senate, 20 Republicans in the Senate. And I don't know how many there is in the House.
41.
41.
40, just 40.
Yeah. So it's very much, they very much have a majority. And I mean, we did a lot of work in the House. I give props to the House a lot because they made sure a lot of those nasty bills did not come over. And they killed that hospital bill after it managed to escape the floor, and the gas bill as well, the natural gas ban bill with an emergency clause, which is ridiculous. But that one managed to make it off the floor even after it was in violation of one of the rules, and it was called, even Lieutenant Governor called it a hot mess. He said, this bill is a hot mess. And so they pulled it off the floor, and they had to go back to the drawing board and had about 24 to 48 hours to work on it before they brought it back out to the floor again for vote. And then it passed on to the House. So I'm very grateful to our colleagues in the House, because they stay up till 2 a.m. most times battling it out. So I don't know what to say, but God bless you all in the House, because I don't know how you do it. Just say I have lots of coffee and sure.
Yes.
The other bills that were killed, other bad bills, was the increase in property taxes and also the unemployment insurance for striking workers, which, as many of you know, if you're a small business owner, you pay 100% of that unemployment insurance. The employees don't. So employees, the unions are wanting to pay their employees to strike under the UI insurance, that's not what it was intended for. It was intended for people that, lost their job for, other reasons, but not to strike. So that bill was also killed. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm very grateful that on June 6th, we'll have police reasonable pursuit back as well. And of course, you heard parental rights, excuse me. And the no income tax back. So help us with signatures, and help us with, if you can, with even phone calling as we get closer to the, Jeremy can talk a little bit more, I guess, about what the plan is for campaigning with the 14th. I know he's been very instrumental in helping the 14th out, but we could definitely use your help, everyone's help with that as well. We want to make sure we keep those seats. So help us do what we can there. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you all for being here.
Yeah, Nikki's quite right. The redistricting deal that made a mess of the 14th and 15th ledge districts here in Yakima, as well as a couple of others. It affected some of the districts down in Tri-Cities. It even came across the pass a little bit and affected a couple of districts on the west side, not very far into it, but just over the hill. So it had a lot of bad effect on, even though the focus was on the two legislative districts here in Yakima, it had a lot of bad effect. And it was all, I mean, the original people who filed the lawsuit were from Seattle. The judge who heard it, Lasnik is his name, from Seattle. So it was messing with Yakima's district lines, but it was all out of Seattle that it was going on. So, I mean, you can guess what's going on there. There's the lawsuit is still in effect to try to fix that and put the lines back. And if that lawsuit is successful, then Nikki can remain in the district he's representing right now, rather than getting bumped out of the district she's currently representing. So we want that lawsuit to do well, and we got a little window of time now, of maybe 2 years or a year and a half, to try to get that lawsuit to stick and put the lines back where they were in what we think is the right way. I don't know, Jeremy, I think you should go next. I mean, you lived the redistricting a lot.
All right, sure.
All right, well, Chris Corey will be next.
All right. Hey, everybody, Chris Corey, currently representing the 14th, hopefully soon to be representing the 15th. I jokingly told someone today, and I'm going to use this way more often, that when they're like, well, what district are you in now? And it's like, well, you just called the Washington State Democrat headquarters. It's like jury duty. And the night before, they'll tell you what your district is going to be the next day. And that sounds sarcastic, and obviously it is, but that is what they wanted. So I want to harp on this redistricting thing a little bit more. So they proposed initially 5 maps. One of the maps moved, I want to say, either 13 to 16 Republicans out of their districts. Not a single Democrat got moved. And it was so egregious that they moved me into the 13th district, which includes Moses Lake, Ellensburg, and Cle Elum. And they did it by literally drawing a finger down around my house and back up. They drew all, and that map also knocked out the minority leader, Representative Stokesbury, by half his street. If he threw a rock from his driveway to cross the street, it was a different district. They drew out Nikki, they drew out everybody. It was clearly a Democrat move to disrupt Republicans and create larger majorities for them. It wasn't ever about Hispanic representation. And you know why it wasn't? Because the final map that they went with and the judge approved reduced the Latino population in the district. They went from 53% rounding down to like 50 or 51%. So they reduced it and kicked out the first Latina senator from Central Washington. So that shows you exactly what they were doing. And then even after that, when that map came out that day, the Democrats went out on their official campaign platforms and bragged about the fact that they got a new Democrat district. Now, it wasn't, hey, look, Latinos can finally select their person. It was, we got a new Democrat now. And we're going to show them how wrong they are in November. How wrong and I cannot wait. I cannot wait for me to walk back into Olympia next fall with my new members beside me. I cannot wait for Nikki to walk back into the Senate next year, look those people in the eyes and say, guess what? We're still here. So I'm very excited. We've got a lot of work to do. And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take a lot of work for us to do what we're doing right now. And I've talked to myself, Jeremy, Nikki, and others about how you get involved. I'll talk briefly, just to touch on a couple more things about Olympia. If you ever hear in the media, the Democrats, wherever you read, that the Republicans filibustered something in Washington State, because they like to use that when they're doing poorly, know that that's not true. Like Nikki mentioned, we are in the minority. There is no filibuster in Olympia. The Democrats have the votes today to pass whatever bill they want. They don't need us for a single piece of legislation. When they get in trouble, it's because their policies are so bad, even their own members don't like it. Gas ban bill. Beyond what Jim said, the governor was actually calling people and threatening them if they wouldn't vote for their bill, he would veto their legislation they had already passed. Other bills. So I had a colleague on the other side of the aisle who was a firm no. The governor called that person and said, if you don't vote for this bill, the pieces of legislation that's sitting on my desk right now will be vetoed. That is how bad that bill is. And we saw it with other measures because they're so out of touch with where Washington's at. Take 5599, a bill that would have increased property taxes. It would have allowed for anybody to increase their property taxes. Right now we have a 1% levy limit on property taxes. It would have allowed for local governments to go to 3% without a vote of the people. Almost all the Senate Democrats signed on to it. And it was the Senate Republicans that championed the people and talked about how bad this would be for the people. It wasn't a Republican, Democrat, it was for the people. Public pressure descended on Olympia. Do not raise my taxes. And it was so bad. In the Senate, you can actually remove your name from a bill that a couple Senate Democrats snuck in and withdrew their name from the bill, but they might have forgotten that the initial bill filings show that their name is still on there. So the record is still there. They can't hide from their pro-tax, anti-economy agenda. And that's what we bring up. That's what we fight in the minority. Nikki said 2 a.m. You're really not a true House of Representative member until you've walked out to your car and the sun is coming up after a long night on the floor. Jeremy and I have had many of those because what we do in the minority is we fight. When they bring up a bill and they say they're going to pass it, if they bring up a bill on the floor with almost every 99.9% of the time, with the exception of the one Jim met, that means they have the votes to pass it. So my job, my colleague's job, is to make them pay for bad decisions. And we do that by highlighting all the various reasons why what they're doing is bad for their districts, for Washington, and for people. You mentioned what I got, REIT tax. They wanted to make housing more affordable this year by making housing more expensive. They wanted to increase taxes on homes, on sale, when you buy or sell a home, and that was a single family up to large multifamily housing. Any of that would be subject to a much higher tax. I know in this room, we can all figure out quite easily, if you make it more expensive to buy or sell a home, housing prices go up, not down. That's the logic in Olympia. It's the upside down. So House Republicans, House and the Senate Republicans fought hard, and we were able to stop that bill as well. And that's something they've wanted for multiple years in a row. Last year, we had a bill, 1333, that would have criminalized and empowered the Attorney General's office to look for domestic violent extremism. So broadly defined that it really only meant conservatives, right? It was anything that they disagreed with. And so when myself and others brought up amendments that said basically, okay, if we're going to talk about extremism, let's talk about Antifa. Let's talk about far left. Let's talk about the destruction of our property in the name of certain social justice protests. Those will classify as domestic violent extremism as well. And they didn't want to hear it. They were like, nah, we don't know if we want that. We take that amendment down. Absolutely not. So that ended up killing that bill. I want to thank, where's Matt? Where did Matt Brown go? There you go. Matt and I worked closely on that because people were rightly upset that political speech, political thought, political discussion was soon to be under the scrutiny of the Attorney General's office. That's the state we're in right now. And so it's more important than ever that you show up on these nights because we're not here because we're bored. We have lots of stuff to do, right? I'm here for my kids. One of them's paying, oh, there, you guys finally showed up. You were running around chasing because I want them to have the American dream and the life that I grew up with. The eternal hope and optimism this country is an amazing place to live and that they can do whatever they want if they work hard for it. Not that the government's going to give it to them, not that it's entitled to them, but that if they work hard, they can do whatever they want in this country. With some luck, obviously a little bit of the Lord's providence. So that's why I fight. I know that's why my colleague like Jeremy and Nikki are there, because we know what we have here. It's such a unique and special place that we're willing to take time out of our week when we could be at home, getting ready for work tomorrow, talk about things that are important so that we can continue to do this. So I'm really thankful that Jim's putting this group together so that we can hear this stuff. The fight is there. We're winning on the issues. That's the great news. It's that these issues are 70-30 issues. It's not a Republican versus Democrat issue. It's common sense versus progressive illogic. And that's why they keep having those problems because they're so out of step and out of touch. And it's such an honor to be able to work on behalf of you guys and on behalf of Central Washington to be able to fight for those things. So I don't know, we're not taking questions now.
Yeah, we'll do it at the end. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
We've already teased it a little bit, but Jeremy Defoe was our colleague in the State House in Olympia, got redistricted out, and this Judge Lasnik's map, like one of the few good parts of it, is the judge put Jeremy back in his old district. So now he can run in something like what was his old district. And we expect he's going to rejoin us in Olympia at the next session. But Jeremy, take it away and tell everybody what's up.
I'm pretty upset. You can talk to Daleen about just how upset. 2 Thursdays ago, me and Daleen and a couple other folks, I think some other from this room, some SELA PCOs, we went to the SELA school board meeting. The reason we were at the SELA school board meeting, because they were trying to introduce a curriculum that included a book called Indigenous Peoples' History of the United States of America. Some of the chapters of that book included the settler parasites of the Virginia colony. Andrew Jackson is a genocidal sociopath, and every president who follows after him, Democrat, Republican, follows in his footsteps. That's what they want to teach our kids in SELA, one of the most conservative parts of our community and of our state. And they are already infiltrating so deep, they've got 3 votes on the SELA school board to get that book into the curriculum, mandatory curriculum. That's why what Jim Walsh did, he doesn't give himself enough credit because he's a modest guy. Everybody in this room knows better than that. You don't want to cross Jim Walsh. In Olympia, in any of our communities, he's the one who put forward these 3 initiatives, these 6 initiatives, pushed them forward, used his heft from the Washington State platform, Republican Party, his seat in Olympia, his influence around the state, got those on. Brian Haywood funded them. And now we have a Parents' Bill of Rights in Washington State in 3 days. 3 days, we'll have a Parents' Bill of Rights. One of the things in that Parents' Bill of Rights, parents have the right to look at the curriculum that is being taught to our children. Wow, what a concept, right? What a concept. What Daleen and I had to do, this is what happened on May 7th, a couple days before May 7th. The SELA Director of School Learning, a liberal from Wapato, where we sit right now, laid out a series of books on the table. Let parents come in. You know why there were no parents there except for me? Because they didn't tell anybody about it. I had to email the superintendent and say, anytime there is curriculum on the table in the SELA administrative office, I want you to email me. You know what he said? Can't do that, not a public meeting, not subject to the Public Records Act. I emailed them back. Anytime there is curriculum on a table in the SELA school district where my kids go to school, I want you to email me. I did that 3 times. And then you know what I did? I emailed some reporters. They liked the Open Public Meetings Act. They agreed with my interpretation of that. On May 14th, they bring in this thing called the Instruction Materials Committee. I applied to be on the Instruction Materials Committee. Do you think they chose me to be on the Instructional Materials Committee? They did not choose me to be on the Instructional Materials Committee. One thing that they weaved into this other curriculum bill that will now mandate teaching gay rights beginning in kindergarten, every year of school, interwoven in the curriculum in math classes. In math classes, they will be teaching gay rights in Washington State. I love everybody. I'm a Christian. I don't care what you do in the privacy of your home. That is up to you. I do care what you teach our children. I do care about the values that you teach our children. I do care that we talk to our kids about how important it is to have strong parents, to have a strong mom and a strong dad is the best way to raise kids. I'm divorced. I have 3 kids. That is not the best way to raise kids in a divorced family. Not to say that I can't do an okay job. Not to say that we can't try hard and love our kids. But the Bible teaches us that the core of upbringing children is to have a present mom and a present dad. And that is not controversial. That is biological. And we're going to be teaching our kids different things in school districts all around Washington State. Thanks to Jim Walsh. Thanks to all these people, all these great Republicans who fought this until 4 in the morning. I didn't get to be there. I was texting him a little bit. But thankfully that will change. And if you are all available on June 20th, because we didn't get him to kill it, did we, Daleen? But they tabled it. They didn't want to table it. But there were enough people there, they tabled it for 1 month. So we're going to get another crack at this. On June 20th, we're going to go back to the SELA School District. I'm working on a mailer right now. We're going to send it out to every registered voter in the SELA School District that highlights some of these passages in this book. And it's not just that book, there's another book. This starts in kindergarten. Changes the name of Thanksgiving to a day of mourning. Right? You thought Columbus Day going to Indigenous people. No. This is Thanksgiving, a holiday about cross-cultural interaction and gratitude for this great country of ours, the greatest country in the history of the world. And they want to change that. They want to redefine that as a day of mourning.
You're gonna learn from Turkey.
Yeah. Not if I can help it. So June 20th, please be there. I want to thank Matt Brown. I want to thank Ted Gartrell. They laid some great foundation in East Yakima for Leo Roy's campaign. We were there knocking on doors for a lot of you. Tony was there helping out, writing postcards. Susie here. Yeah, thank you. We got Leo Roy in a district that had been cut. Biden plus 18. Biden won that district by 18. To elect a Democrat, Dulce Gutierrez, Democrat, ran for county commissioner, was on the Yakima City Council, to elect a Democrat. On election night, we were up 73rd. It wasn't even close. Ended up winning the race. Because when you go down to those districts, when you talk to those voters one-on-one, 60% of them, 70% of them are Latinos. But they are conservative. They are Nikki Torres. They are Gloria Mendoza conservatives. And when you come at Yakima County, when you come at the city of Yakima from the west side, you get the Hydra. You cut off one head, you get two. You cut off two heads, you get four. We're going to go back to Olympia in January next year with Nikki Torres, Gloria Mendoza, Deb Mangeras. They're not going to know what hit them. Because I can guarantee you Chelsea Demas is not going to Olympia. Have you seen Chelsea Demas? I know Jacob Castillo has, because I saw him down at the Sunnyside City Council meeting going toe-to-toe with her, fighting down the Pride Proclamation. Way to go, Jacob. So pretty soon we got to get Jacob Castillo over to Olympia. That's what I'm talking about. Redistricting, you heard it. You heard it from Jim. You heard it from Chris. It's a mess, but we're gonna win. We're gonna fight. It would be nice if we could be spending some of these resources in some of the other areas, over in up by Canadian border and with the island and down by Vancouver, because we've got to win those races.
Get there too.
Yeah, we will. We will. But they've taken some of our horsepower. They've taken some Nikki time and Chris time and really made us work here. But we're okay. We're going to do that because we've got all of you. Thank you all for your support, all the PCOs, all the great PCOs, and all the work you do. Really appreciate it. And again, can't thank Jim Walsh enough for what he does. Just canvassing the state and making it cool to be a conservative again. I mean, it's always been cool for us, right? We're here. He's from Western Washington, right? He's a missionary over there. He's turning the tide. My future seatmate, Chris Corey, it's going to be so cool. I mean, they thought they scrambled it. I don't think the judge knew where I live. They were focused on all kinds of crazy things. But the fifth, I believe, and we have opponents, so we're not taking anything for granted. We're running. But the 15th legislative district in 2025 could be represented by Nikki Torres, Chris Corey, and Jeremy Defoe. I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, take me out of the equation. I mean, that's a good strong conservatives right there. And then I think we're going to get the 14th too. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity here, even though I'm not elected. Quasi. Anyway, thanks for letting me talk.
Of course. I take a little snippet of the video you're talking and send it to Judge Lasnik so he understands what he said. He will question his cricket map. So mostly we talk about Olympia and state law and state initiatives and state budgets, but we have Jared Sussler with us today too, and he's running, of course, for Congress. And I think it's a great opportunity to have Jared talk a little bit about DC and what's going on there and what his plan is for, draining the swamp?
That's right.
All right, Jared Sussler.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. We'll start with, and I'll be brief so we can get the questions, but let's talk national real quick, and then we'll get back to the state stuff because that's kind of where the discussion is tonight. But gloves are off. Everybody noticed this week? Gloves are off. I'm going to tell you the number one reason why you should support me, and thank you for all of you, by the way. Many of you were delegates to the state convention, have helped in my campaign. and helped to make sure I could get where I'm at with the great endorsements. We got the Washington State Republican Party endorsement, a bunch of the county endorsements, thanks to you. And of course, President Trump, Kash Patel, which is a tremendous honor, General Flynn, Roger Stone, Wendy Rogers, the list goes on. I'm just incredibly blessed by all that. But the gloves are off. And this should be, as of this week, this should be the number one reason that you're pro Sessler. Because there is nobody else in this race that is going to take it to the House in Washington, D.C. We just got this whole thing is, I mean, we have to have people who are willing to fight, willing to go on offense. Just like what you just heard your state legislature and senator doing in Olympia, we have to go to Washington, D.C. and go on offense. I mean, several trips back there. I've got endorsements from about a dozen of the existing congressmen and women. Almost all of them in the House Freedom Caucus. Those are the people that think like we do, that support the principles, the traditional American values that we do, and they want to see your America restored. The gloves are literally off. I'm telling you, it's actually a very scary prospect for us that the gloves are off with what happened to President Trump this week. It is actually pretty scary for our country, but we can use it to our advantage for now. There is a path to fix it. I think it's going to take a constitutional amendment, to be honest with you. Because what the left will want is they'll want us to play patsy and not do anything like we always do. Are you tired with me of electing people who just don't seem to have any leather anywhere on their body just to keep this friendly, right? And then, of course, the Democrats will do what? They'll just take it to the House like they always do. It's terrible. So I want to tell you a little bit about, first of all, President Trump is in very good spirits. I've been, since we got the endorsement and kind of working through that process, I've been blessed to be sort of on the inside track with some of those things. And I'll tell you something that he said this week that I thought was rather Trumpish. His attorneys were lobbying an effort to try to negotiate with the other side to keep him from being put in cuffs in the courtroom on whenever it is, I think it's July 13th or something, and, hauled off to actual jail, right? Or maybe it's house arrest or something like that. You know what Trump said? No, don't stop him. Don't negotiate with him. I kind of think he likes the, what is it now, $220 million that he's brought in the last few days? I mean, I personally think that if they tried to put him in any building, any structure beyond his will in this country, I know I'd be there taking the building apart brick by brick, and I think most of you probably would be too. That's just an atrocity. So he's in good spirits. I think he's excited to be free of the, sitting in the courtroom, freezing his butt off for 5 weeks or whatever it was, and he's ready to go on the campaign trail. I'll tell you that I'm talking to his team and working hard to try to get him to do a rally here in Eastern Washington. And it's not out of the question. I don't know that it's very likely just because of the schedule, but Washington is a very late primary. So you never know. So let's hope we can pull it together. I want to thank everybody, especially the elected that are here. You guys fight your what's off, and I really appreciate it. Jeremy, I'm very excited to see you get back in. I'm just glad I'm not running against you. If there was ever a campaigner, Jeremy is the guy. So I'm going to tell you that I'll give you a little inside baseball. The Democrats are not running. They didn't intentionally run anybody in the 4th district because they were so excited about trying to win some legislative seats. This is straight from them. And I don't think they're going to be successful at doing it. I think we have some great candidates. We have a plan. We have people behind them. It's not going to happen. Now, there are some Democrats in the race. I'm not even going to talk about that because I don't want to waste a bunch of your time. But I will tell you there's one other reason why I think that you should support me. I think everybody in Washington State should support me. And please don't hear any pessimism in this because you could if you read into it. But I think my race is the most likely that we can win. That we can win a true conservative, not a Dan Newhouse type Republican. Okay? We have a long shot in the 6th, right? It's a long shot. Derek Kilmer's retiring. We have a long shot, right? We have a maybe in the 8th, right? We have a really pretty good chance in the 3rd with Joe Kent, right? There's Joe Kent fans here. He has a good chance. We have a good shot in the 5th, really good, I'd say. You know, the 4th, it's almost a lock, right? We have a really good shot of winning here, and that is over even all of the statewide races. I'm somewhat pessimistic about the statewide races because of the voting system, which Jim talked about a little. We'll talk about more than that. Matt has really led in some ways that were phenomenal. Hopefully we'll talk more about that. But I have a plan for how we can take back Washington State, and I believe it flows through the 4th congressional district. I'm not going to go through the whole plan tonight, but I'm telling you, it's not that hard. But it involves, again, offense. We need to stop complaining about the West Side and start taking Eastern Washington on offense against Western Washington. And I have a plan to do that, and I will implement that with vigor once I'm elected. Yeah, I'll spend my time in Washington, D.C. Voting there is very easy, but my real passion is winning this state back, and we can do it. So let's take some questions.
All right.
We get everybody else back up.
All right. We film these things a little bit to use the tidbits of them for promotion and ads. We do not film the question and answer stuff. Now, you can film it if you want, but we will not.